Hello, and welcome back to our video series where we offer advice for raising a Deutsch Drahthaar puppy. In the first video, we really focused on things that you could be doing with a 3-month-old Drahthaar puppy to prepare him for the upcoming testing season, as well as a lifetime of hunting, and then of course just being a good pet in the home. So now that your puppy is around 4 months of age, it's time to review some of those concepts we visited earlier and then expand on them and introduce some new drills that will help him develop. So with the 3-month-old puppies, we worked a lot on just general manners. We want to make sure that they're crate trained and housebroken and that they have good manners around people and other dogs. We also spent some time talking about general obedience commands, making sure that your puppy knows sit, stay, down, come, and heel. And then as soon as they know down, I like to introduce the halt command right away where we're using a dual tone whistle to blow them into a down. You'll find this incredibly useful later. But you'll want to make sure that you're continuing to work on all of this obedience and enforcing it in more difficult situations. The stepping stones that we're setting down now will really help your puppy become a well-mannered, obedient dog in the future if you're really enforcing these commands now. We also talked about teaching a release command. I always just release a dog from a down or a halt, or even just going in or outdoors with a tap on the back of the head. I like using a physical cue versus a verbal cue, so the dogs are less likely to anticipate the command and break early. We also started talking about how you could work on retrieving in the house, making sure your pup is sitting every time they come back to you, whether they drop the toy or not, and then giving them a food reward so that they're already associating this idea of completing a retrieve to you means that they get a reward. You'll also want to introduce your puppy to swimming as soon as possible. I didn't have a video portion for that just because I'm filming this series in the winter and we don't have access to water. But whenever you get your puppy, it's important to get them in the water and comfortable with swimming as soon as possible, as soon as weather conditions allow, where it would be a fun, pleasant experience. In the 3-month-old video, we also talked about making sure that your puppy is getting more and more confident in using their nose. And you can do that simply by taking them for walks in both the fields and in the woods, anywhere that you might eventually be testing, hunting, or just going for a walk. And then finally, we talked about how it's important to introduce young puppies to thawed game, dead game, so that they can get into retrieving things with both fur and feathers. And then we introduced laying drag so the puppy could follow a track and then get a retrieve and then be rewarded with food. So hopefully you've already been doing all of that with your puppy, and now we're ready to move on to what shall we do with a 4-month-old puppy. So here's the outline that I've got laid out for this next portion of the video series. As I mentioned, we're already going to review all the 3-month-old training, but I'm going to show you a new way to make sure that your puppy is comfortable with people checking his bite and teeth. Big idea here is just we're going to introduce food and give them another food reward for allowing people to manipulate their mouths. Also, we just want to introduce a slip lead to the release that you use while you're doing drags. In the 3-month-old video, we talked a lot about how to lay a drag and how to start your puppy on a drag, but I didn't want to introduce the slip lead quite yet because it can be a little cumbersome trying to do so many things at once. But now that your puppy's done some drags and they already kind of know the game, that once you blow them down and point out a feather pile, they're going to have a track. Now is the time to start adding a slip lead just to make that transition more seamless from them leaving you to following the track to finding game. I put in here intro to water and swimming again. As I mentioned, I wasn't able to do it last month with my puppy. Now we're in February in Nebraska. We've got snow on the ground and frozen water, so I'm still not going to be able to do that with my 4-month-old. But please, please, please do this with your puppy if conditions allow in your area. The other things I want to talk about in this 4-month-old video series are to teach a command, go to your spot, or simply shorten to spot. You'll thank me for this one later, making your dog a nice companion in the house. We'll also introduce a round robin retrieving drill and a couple other retrieving drills that I want to put in here too. So one of them is just playing hide and seek. This is a great introduction to blind retrieves. I'll explain that in a later video. And then finally, we'd really like to introduce puppies to live birds as soon as possible. So if you haven't already done so, Now is the time to start thinking about getting your pup on live birds and really awakening that pointing instinct that they should have within them. And then finally, I've included a video on an introduction to blood tracking. And whether you're planning to run a VGP eventually with your puppy or not, I'd strongly encourage you to introduce blood tracking at this age. It'll help them with all of their tracking. If they go into a VJP and they have to track a live rabbit, it's much easier for them if they've already done a lot of blood tracking and are comfortable with getting focused on a track and they know that they'll get rewarded if they stick with that track. And then, of course, if you ever do get to use your dog in a real hunting situation to recover a deer, it's incredibly exciting. So try to introduce your dog to blood tracking now too. Again, you can do it later, and I've certainly had success training dogs at an older age for blood tracking to complete a VGP, but the younger you start, the easier it is for them to get into it. And then finally, I just want to again say that this is not by any means an all-inclusive list of everything that you could be doing with your 4-month-old puppy. This is just a minimum that I would recommend to every Drahthaar owner to make sure that your puppy is well on his way to being prepared for testing within the JGHV system and for hunting his entire life. So I did change the format a little bit from the 3-month videos to the 4-month ones. For the 3-month-old video, I had one long video that had several clips all merged together. For the 4-month series, I've decided to leave them as standalone videos, so I'll put them in the order that we've got here on the outline, but it's going to be individual videos that you'll need to click on to view them. And they're just getting to be longer as we get to more advanced training, so I thought this would be easier for folks to bookmark or go back and review those videos where they need more help with their puppy. All right, so thank you again for tuning in, and best of luck training your now 4-month-old Drahthaar puppy.